If you have just joined us, welcome to it. This is African Diaries. Shayla and Dukumana keeping you company, and it's time for us to get into our very first conversation. If you are not a soloist, meaning you do not do things by yourself, and perhaps yours was to question the reality of travel and to say, Shayla, listen, I have never traveled by myself and I want to know what that is about. I want you to stick around and, of course, participate on the poll that we just put out there on X as well as on Facebook, finding us on at Channel Africa 1. Now, have you ever wondered why solo traveling or doing solitude, things that isolate you from the world's perspective and how people continue to emphasize coming together? Why are those particular experiences frowned upon? Well, today we see how we can love on ourselves. Of course, this through solo travel, how solo travel can be a form of self love. And joining us this evening is solo traveler Vela Makwela. We're going to be finding out about Vela's experience and, of course, learning a thing or two, really profiting from what Vela has learned over the course of her solo travels. Vela, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Cheers, Shayla. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's talk about solo travel from this context. Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
people tend to, I'm just taking time to be by myself. Or the life that I'm living is tough. It comes from a pain point for the most part. From what I'm hearing, is that a lot of people want to stray away from their own context and experience. And it almost gives a little bit of a bitter taste to the reality of solo travel. What was the reason you started solo traveling? Was it the experience of too many humans and you're like, okay, now I need a break? Was that your story too?
Nope. I must say that I do find too much peopling too overwhelming sometimes. But no, that was not the reasoning. I actually started solo traveling by, I don't want to say by design, but it was somewhat by force. My work at the time required me to do a bit of traveling for conferencing and related stuff. And I found that most of the time I found myself in these foreign lands by myself. And if you're going to survive the space and not feel so isolated and not feel so out of place, if you will, it required me to very quickly come up with an itinerary and come up with a way to entertain myself while I was on my own. And that kind of sort of then triggered something even bigger and better. So I started utilizing the opportunities that were provided to say, well, on my own dime, I couldn't afford this. So while I'm here, let's see what else I can get out of it. And that just stuck and it's just been a thing. And then when I left that job, it just carried on. But the need to travel and to isolate has always been in me, I guess. It just needed a catalyst. And the catalyst was one of my jobs a couple of years ago.
Vela, what I find interesting about solo travel as well is that it has quite a few benefits, right? There is a sense of awareness that you become more, I suppose, more veiled to, right? You are aware of self, you understand what is Vela like, what impresses Vela, what doesn't impress Vela, without the noise of a crowd around you. What are some of the things that you learned about yourself that you are still today thinking, wow, this is impressive?
Um, Other than the fact that people can be too much to people with, um, I realized I do find comfort in my own company. I realized that there are more odd people out there uh, than just myself. I think there are certain quirks and certain likes that we all have, be it traveling, be it solitude, be it, I don't know, museums, depending on where you grew up, be it art, be it food, be it trying something once. The more you travel, the more you meet like-minded individuals out there. But more than anything, I found I liked the discovery, the unknown. Me getting into a new space and not knowing how I'm going to kind of navigate it, and then finding my way through it, and finding the joy in that. That's what surprised me a bit, and my capabilities to navigate and the unknown is what I found mostly interesting about me.
The voice there of solo traveler here to educate us this evening. This is Vela Makwela who's joining us. And the reality is we're talking about self-love through solo travels. Is this for you? Is it not for you? That's the question I'm putting forth before you. Do you agree? Do you disagree that solo travel is something that you can benefit from? Find us on WhatsApp. Tell us all about it. But also send through your questions. The number to find us on is +27 63406 9126. Vela, I can only imagine that this job threw you across various landscapes, right? Did
Yeah.
you need to learn language? Did you need to learn culture? Did you need to learn ways of communicating certain nuances that you didn't necessarily know were more respectful than the next? Did you find yourself having to learn those kinds of things?
I mean, yeah, no, in the sense of, I guess my sense of, well, first of all, I think to survive it and to navigate it as efficiently and pain-free as possible, you need to first of all be aware of your context, the context that you are going into. So there's no point in going out there if you're used to be this kind of, I don't know, flamboyant and kind of loud and boisterous type of person. Certain spaces don't allow for that, or and not out of trying to be oppressive or not, but it's being aware of the environment that you are coming into, right? It doesn't help to learn the language if you can. And I mean, the very basics are usually what I go for, how to ask for direction, how to say please, thank you, and that type of stuff. But then, of course, now with the advancement of technology, you don't even have to spend too much time worrying about that. There's a lot of translator kind of apps and devices, and Google Maps is your friend and that type of stuff. But I think you have to do it at the very minimum, a basic search and understanding of where you are going, some of the do's and don'ts of the place you are visiting, and also understanding the do's and don'ts within the context of what kind of makes you tick, where to go and what to avoid. Those are just, for me, the very basics of what determines where I go and where I won't go.
Well, I want to talk about budgets, currencies, the money, because I experienced one thing that I never thought in my whole living lifestyle that I'd ever see this happen, where there's an individual who was coming from a different continent to South Africa. And when they landed, they wanted to use the dollar as though it were the rand.
Yeah,
And then it got a little weird, because you're taking out $20 that's not of the same, caliber state, and people are willing to take in because it's business to them, no hard
yeah,
feelings. That's what you thought was the cost
yeah.
of certain thing X. What would you say is a starter pack for somebody who's saying, I want to try and solo travel? I've never done this. I've never had to think outside my context. I've never had to think outside my terrain. I've never packed for a way than what I'm familiar with. What are, let's say, 4 things that they need to have on lock, in guard, completely aware of, so that they're not screaming throughout the process and are rather enjoying themselves?
Well, the first thing I do is, first of all, share your itinerary or your travel plans with somebody you trust, somebody that's accessible, and somebody who can, on a very quick turnaround time, if something goes wrong, know where to go and where to start it looking for you. An international SIM card for me, an eSIM now, with the kind of cell phones that we have. An international SIM card is an important one. That way you have data and you can move about, and technically you can't really get lost, right? So you just search where you are. And I send myself locations of where I've been. So if I'm at a specific hotel and I'm setting off to explore something, whether on my own or on a train or on a bus, I send myself the original location. And then, of course, international currency. I travel with a credit card, but I always have cash on me. So either when I land or before I leave, I watch what the currency trade prices are. And sometimes I buy the currency early. Sometimes I buy as I get to the airport. But have some change or some kind of cash on you. Otherwise, you use digital currency. And I guess what the fourth one would be, to have fun, really. As long as you've booked things ahead. I also believe in booking things ahead, accommodation, transport as far as possible, at least your way into the place and back home. Make sure those are locked in. And then in between, have enough to move from one place to the other. And yeah, cash in your hand and keep your passport, at least a copy of it on you. If not the original, keep a copy of it on you as you are moving about in whatever city you are, and lock the original in a safe.
Vela, let's, I suppose, as we simmer toward the end of the conversation, two questions that I have left for you. Firstly, we are seeing an uptake on solo travels by women. We're seeing an 84% increase. Unfortunately, I can't give you the stat prior to that, but we're seeing that the majority of the cluster, the 40% increase that we're seeing that has taken place over the past 2-3 years in terms of solo travel, 84% of that chunk are women. Why do you think this is the case?
I just think that we are just a little bit more bold and a little more adventurous, right? I think the world is kind of opened up in a spectacular way. I mean, I'm a 40-year-old, and maybe when I was 20, I still was, my thinking was also deeply rooted in what the time was. Not that it was as oppressive, but I think we are much bolder, and we are taking things head on. And part of that leads to self-discovery. And there's no better place to discover yourself than in a place that is so unfamiliar, in a place that requires self-sufficiency. And at home, naturally, we are. And we're better to practice and to hone in that skill than in a different type of place. And to be fair, I think also for a certain segment of the market and females, for females for that matter, we are now making or have access at least to resources, to cash, to just an opportunity to explore. I'd love to understand how that stat also correlates with how many more people are settling down, or how many more are delaying settling down and choosing maybe this type of lifestyle. Perhaps there's something there to be thought about.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that one, Vela. And then our very last conversation, or rather question for that matter, is a statement we put up on social media. Okay. So the team and I got a bit nifty, and we're asking people a true or false question. I suppose you bring the answer because this is your lived experience. So is this wise or is this absolute lies? That studies show that solo travelers engage more deeply with local cultures. This is learning languages faster, trying new foods, and even forming lasting intentional friendships.
I can imagine so. When you are alone in an unknown or unfamiliar territory, you're going to find yourself in a situation that requires you to get deep in touch with the locals, with the place and such. And it's interesting. I mean, certain places not so much, but a lot of people are genuinely helpful. And the best experiences that I've had is actually getting in touch with the locals, and forging those meaningful relationships or friendships, even if for that 2-week period and such, and just having the local guy or grandma at the corner store who sees you every day, kind of looking at your map and charting your way out, and they'll be very quick to let you know where to go, what to try out. So 100%, I think solo travelers get much deeply, because also it has to do a lot also with the level of research you have to do about a place before you get there. You just, by the time you arrive there, you find, other than what it looks like, which you can't always conceptualize, even if you see pictures of. When you get there, it feels like you know the place if you've done enough research into it, and then just become one of the locals, kind of thing, and then people warm up to you in that way, unless, except for, or rather compared to when you come across as a all-knowing tourist and stuff like that. I like to rather kind of disguise myself as a local. It doesn't always go unnoticed. I get caught out quite easily. But that's the fun of it. That's where conversations start, and you get to learn places you wouldn't have found on Instagram's most recommended places to go, I guess.
Sure. Vela, I was about to say, how do we witness your solo travel experiences? But I realize that you're not necessarily on social media platforms. So, is there a blog? Can we digest your experiences and vicariously live through your day to day? Is there a platform for such?
I'm terrible at just staying updated, but I think my Instagram is probably the best place to check. Vela Makwela is what it is. That's LOGAMAKWELA, where sometimes I kind of document where I've been and what I'm doing.
Madame Vela, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure.
It was lovely, Shayla. Cheers to you and the
That is the voice of solo traveler Vela Makwela joining us, or rather Makwela joining us this evening, and just sharing her experiences being out and about. Her story starting off with employment. Her job required her to do much traveling, and so she decided, given that I am out and about, let me make the most of it. And that most became a journey that she hasn't stopped sort of partaking in and continuously participating and journeying through as a solo traveler. Is that your story as well? Perhaps is yours? Listen, it's not for me. Find me on WhatsApp. Tell me all about it. I'd love to hear from you. Find us on +27 634069126. 2 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time. Let's get some music.